Welcome back to Know Thy User, brought to you by RivalMind, a results-driven digital marketing agency. I'm Josiah Flex. I'm an SEO strategist at RivalMind, and I'm one of the 3 hosts for the season. And today, I'm very excited to introduce our guest, Larry Bettag. Larry is the Vice President of Production at Cherry Creek Mortgage. He's a licensed attorney. He's a podcaster. He's an author. So, Larry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So let's jump in. Can you just give us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I have this nickel version of me at probably under a minute, but I'm the oldest of 5 kids, grew up in the way western suburbs out here. Spent 5.5 years drinking my way through college, and I think God found me, or I found God my second senior year in college. I went on and got a master's in clinical psych. I loved working with teens, but I worked with the parents. I hated it. And then I went to law school. And the rule in law school is the first year they scare you to death. The second year they work you to death, and third year they bore you to death. And it was my bore you to death year, and I had a classmate of mine tell me to get into mortgages, so I got in with mortgages, and I worked with the company until they went bankrupt. In 2000, I came over to Cherry Creek. Now I'm Vice President of National Production. I graduated law school. I got hired on with Griffin Williams, which is the oldest law firm in King County. I still work with them. Married to a woman a heck of a lot better than what I deserve. Got 5 kids, 23, 21, 19, 17, and 15. I'm an author and a podcaster, but just passionate about my faith, my family, and impacting people's lives.
That's awesome. Thanks. That's quite the snippet. I love it. Let's talk a little bit around just the topic of marketing. I know we chatted a little bit before we started this, but give me a little bit of an insight to marketing in the real estate world and your experience as an attorney. How does the topic of marketing interact between real estate and your experience as an attorney?
Well, I'm the vice president over at Cherry Creek Mortgage, and I have a great mentor, and she told me that your entire business is built on know me, like me, trust me. So how can people trust you if they don't like you? How can people like you if they don't know you? And so really, I think no matter if you're in sales, that's your whole job is to close those gaps. I have come to the conclusion, my father, my grandfather, my 3 brothers, my 4 nephews are all MDs, and my grandfather, my uncle, they were attorneys. I knew one thing for a fact: I would never do sales. And
why not? What was the holdup there?
Well, I always think of the Slozy Edelson commercial where you got these 2 guys in the cheap plaid suits waving a wad of hundreds, saying where you always save more money. And I'm like, how many people like sales calls? When salespeople call, I don't. I don't think probably you do. And what I realized is I worked for my father he opened the first surgery center in the state of Illinois. And he, when working with him, I realized that every single person is in sales. And what I mean by that is that, he's trying to get all the doctors to take their cases over to Valley Ambulatory and leave the current hospitals that he used to work for. The priest who's in charge of our local church, he's in sales. He's trying to get money for a fundraiser to go ahead and build a new school. And then the guy who's a foreman on the line, or just a lineman, is in sales. He's trying to get his boss to notice him. And so you're either transactional or you're relational. And I think transactional will be something like an Amazon, where you're just looking for cheap. But we're in real estate, and I think that we are, as I tell people, we're in the second most important transaction in someone's life. I always say it's the spouse, then the house. And in theory, your spouse is a one and done, and the house, though, you can trade in. So no one wants the cheapest, quickest. They want something that's going to be meaningful for the rest of their lives. And I will tell you, I've seen many times where there's been buyer's remorse, like literally they close 1 or 3 months later, they're selling, and because they made the biggest mistake of their life. So sales, everyone's in it. And once they realized it was relational and not transactional, I was okay with it.
I love what you said about really everything is a sale, right? When I think about if I saw this movie that I really enjoyed, I'm trying to sell you on seeing this movie with me.
Absolutely.
Or whatever. And so I think that's a really good insight. What would you say is the distinction between marketing specifically and sales? Like where's the overlap? Where's the separation in your mind?
Well, sales would be you're the product. So in other words, you're the product. RivalMind has a face, and of the moment you are that face. And so as far as specifically, well you're selling a product. And so my product, I'm the sales. Whatever I do is sales. So if I'm driving down the street and I have my vanity tire cover and I flip somebody off, well, I guess what? I probably
you represented.
I represented in a way I probably shouldn't have, just because of my frustration at the moment, and I've done that once or twice. But I think when it comes to marketing a product, well, I go to know me, like me, trust me. But then I'm always trying to go ahead and market the product. And so what's the product? The product is fulfilling a need. And so my need in the mortgage arena, or even in the real estate arena, is trying to be top of mind. And so top of mind is where it's really at. And what I mean by that is, you hate when people keep shoving the same stuff down you. And so for me, my marketing, I tell everybody within my region, there's two things. It should be educate and serve. So if I educate people and serve people, as opposed to selling people, the sales will come because you're creating a brand of trust, and hopefully you're top of mind. And even through use of RivalMind, I become top of mind, because all of a sudden at one day, Bobby and Susie decide that now that they're engaged, they need to look at buying a house. And they just got the most recent communication from me, which is serving and educating them, like, we got to go talk to Larry. Or mom and dad say, hey, go talk to Larry. And that's what the whole product's about. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I think it's interesting as the digital world has become more and more prevalent, where there's essentially, right, I like to liken it as like Google's not a person, right? Google has to be educated, and there has to be this rapport built.
Right.
So that when someone searches a question, which more and more people are doing, we want that to be connected to a particular organization or a product and whatnot. And so like what you're saying between the relational aspect as humans, there's now this world of, there's a platform that isn't human, that a lot of humans are interacting with and asking questions to. And so the piece that I really enjoy about the SEO side is it's creating this education opportunity for Google on, okay, this company, this is who they are, this is where they're located, these are the businesses, these are the areas they serve. And the way that's communicated is through code and through structured data and through things that aren't just you and I talking. So I think that's a really interesting element in this conversation.
Well, I think the difference of what you're saying versus what I'm saying is that you're smart, I'm not. And so when you're talking about code and all this stuff, I got to tell you, I don't know about code. I don't care about code. I hate code. I want the relationships. However, in this new generation, they're starting everybody in the real estate search process starts online. And so even people don't know this, but Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, they're not real estate companies. They are aggregators. And what they're trying to do is suck in the data and bundle customers and sell them to lenders or realtors. And so there's such a misnomer. However, people like us, we have two ways of doing business. We go either really deep with our database, which I do, and keep really great relationships with the database, or I pride myself as always being cutting edge. And so I try to stay up front with everything and with the cutting edge stuff. And so that's why I have RivalMind involved. And they can do all that code and all that language stuff that I don't really care about, and I could just make it work. Because if I get them on the phone, I'm fairly certain I can create that level of trust. It's just a matter of getting them to cross that bridge, closing the gap to create that bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. Because relationship is what you excel at and what so many companies excel at, that is the end goal, is get them to interact with somebody on the team, interact and have a conversation. That's where it happens. And the interesting piece is the digital marketing space is essentially allowing someone to pre-qualify or disqualify themselves from even having that conversation. And so people will search a lot of peripheral questions. And if this person is providing consistent answers online, the rapport is then built before they even get on the phone, so that when they do get on the phone, they already know everything about you. Their questions have been answered. You're an authority in the space. And then it's just doing what you do and building relationships.
Well, our industry, I'm going to say, is a crappy industry. And I think we are one of the most important industries in the sense that we're helping people with the American dream. But up until 2007, 2008, there was no licensing, and there was no barrier to entry. And as a result, a lot of sleazy people came in, and also we had the mortgage meltdown, and we have all this licensing. Well, what's happened is the new sleazes have found out that if they can go online and hire a company, I'm going to say such as RivalMind, and use it for evil as opposed to good, everything can be used for evil or good, they can go ahead and just get people to go ahead and ding into them and connect with them, and they take it and they go ahead and leverage a customer in a very poor way. What I like about what you guys have going on is that you guys have, I will say this, a same mindset, a value mindset where I feel, in fact, my first conversation with Matt was that he said, if this isn't going to work for you, I don't want to do it. I don't want to just take your money. And I will tell you, I had a conversation with someone who called me yesterday, wants to do what you're doing. And I knew within he tricked me to get on the phone. And I knew within the first maybe 15 to 30 seconds that he was someone who I'm going to say I have lots of discomfort proceeding with the phone call. But I think at the end of the day, long story short, with RivalMind, with us, again, the goal is know me, like me, trust me. If you can create the trust factor, the rest will take care of itself. And the only thing I don't like about the internet is when people say, for example, in our company, we have a great culture. Everyone says they have a great culture, even if they have a crappy culture. They either don't know their culture sucks or they're lying. We actually have a great culture. We come in and high five each other and whatnot. And actually, I know you guys have a great culture. And but how do you convey that in a very impersonal world of the internet? That's a problem. And so you have people that are out there saying, hey, come to XYZ Mortgage. We're going to take care of you. Well, their definition of taking care of you might be way different than mine. Mine is really to serve. Theirs is to take care of you. And you will not resurrect from them taking care of you. And how do we do that? We're partnering with someone like you. We can communicate that message. I wish that we can go ahead and filter out the bad players, but whatever.
Yeah. You said a lot of good things there. I think just the digital space itself is so unique because, right, conversations like we're having, long form podcasts, is a way for someone to listen to and actually get a feel for, are these people actually legit? Do they actually care about me?
Or is it just a line?
Yep.
I wish there was you guys got to create some kind of code that says they're full of crap. And so when they go ahead and publish stuff out there on the internet, the crap meter goes off. And so you guys got to figure that one out.
Yep. And so the interesting piece on that is the way Google builds or allocates authority is based on, essentially, think of it like a popularity contest. Is backlinks is the phrase,
sure,
but essentially other people that will validate,
okay,
or say they're not an authoritative source on this thing. And so that's a really interesting piece of the digital space, is creating this clear line between who's phony, who's legit, and making that like a reality in the digital world is still, there's so many different strategies on how that's done.
I think that's a problem still, because I will tell you, if you have deep pockets, you can create those backlinks. You can pay for whatever the heck you want to pay for, and the customer still gets screwed. So for me, what's nice is I have our company that can tie in with your company. I love and trust our company. I'm really, valuing our relationship. I think the law of multiplicity, the more people you have on the same mission, the more likely it is that we're going to succeed. But I still want you guys to get a bullshit meter out there for people so we can pull them
That's
off.
right, just a little graph on a website. It's
Yeah.
like,
It'd be good.
That's right. Maybe that's an untapped area for us. What's, to kind of shift gears a little bit, what's a common either myth or misconception in the real estate world that you interact with all the time, of someone believing something and coming to you and asking a question, and you're having to repeat the same question of re-educating someone?
You know what? First of all, consumers always say, "What's your rate?" I will tell you, there's two misnomers. One is that there's, first of all, when people tell me their credit score, there's 26 different types of credit reporting out there, and so they get something from Credit Karma, and that's BS. It's great for Credit Karma. It's great for some retail, but if you think about again the level of importance of things that happen in your life, spouse in the house, the most stringent credit report is out of the house. And so when people say my credit's 700, well, where'd you get that credit from? It was when I got my credit card or my car, or that's BS. And that might be an indicator, but it's not what it is. The second one is that people think that a rate's a rate. And number one, there's probably at least 30 variables that go into quoting a rate. And I won't go through them, but a couple of them would just be like debt to income, how much, what zip code you're in, what's your credit score, loan to value, how much of a down payment. There's a million different variables that go into creating a rate. And then people think that the lowest rate is the best thing. And I guarantee you, I promise you that is not the case. And so I am going to call one company out. I will tell you, like Quicken, for example, nothing negative against them. In fact, the owner of our company is friends with the owner of that company. But one thing Quicken says is we just always show the lowest rate, because there's a segment of the population that wants the lowest rate.
Sure.
Well, then next thing you know, they're paying $1 zillion for that rate, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And so, lowest rate, how about the thing that's most financially successful or advantageous to you? And quite honestly, that's really custom to every single person. I guarantee you, every single brother and sister that I have, and each one of my 5 kids, every single one of those needs are completely different from each other, and it has to be custom made to you. Now, that might sound cliche, but I will tell you this. When I have someone that says, I got this low rate, and we just had one recently where literally they were being charged $20,000 for the rate. Okay, well, that's great. Do you want that rate that bad? Or do you want to just have something that's really fair, and you keep that $20,000 in your pocket, and when the rates drop down, you can refinance, and you're saving lots of money. So,
man, lots of good pieces there. Yeah. Hopefully, those of you who are listening and watching are taking notes on all those pieces. What, in relation to marketing, what have you tried that's really worked in your career so far, and what are some marketing efforts that you've explored that maybe haven't worked for a variety of reasons?
Well, this is going to sound really weird to you young people, but face to face, and I always tell people oral rules, and what I mean by that is once you have a database, once you have a clientele, believe it or not, COVID has taught. I was out with someone this morning, and COVID was, what was great about COVID is we learned that we can all get along well without seeing each other, without having to come into the office, and we really had really significant technological advances. However, I do believe that when it comes to the heart needs to be connected, and I think that there was a lot of people that I really believe started having mental illnesses, and I'm not talking about going crazy, but they started suffering in silence because they weren't connected to people. And so one of my things I really like as far as marketing is having client appreciation events where we get together, we break bread. I like doing things that taking people golfing every Friday. But then I go to the old standards, which is database management and email. And one of the things that I put in with my broadcast email is BombBomb, and I'm sure you've heard of BombBomb.
I haven't actually.
You have not heard of BombBomb?
No.
I taught the young guy something.
Let's go.
So BombBomb is one of the best video integration CRM things in the probably number one in within our industry, or probably I think just within the CRM world. And the use of video is through the roof. And the thing I like about it is that. I don't know about you, but I think one of the first things we all do when we get in the office every morning is get rid of all the emails and all the BS that's going to slow us down. And but I think what's great about BombBomb, it interfaces with your CRM, but it puts your personality in there. And so I use BombBomb. I live on BombBomb, and I call it malpractice, financial malpractice. If you're not in front of your consumers on a weekly basis, teaching and educating. And I think I can teach and educate something, just a snippet, in under 3 minutes. And if I can do that every week, what's great about it is it will now use my personality. And so now people are going to know that I'm a snake oil salesman or I'm legit. They'll be able to do that because of the continuity of my message and what is my message. If my message every Friday is like, hey, great rates, come see Larry. Okay, they can sniff out BS. But if I say, hey, listen, here's the deal. Just so you know, if you haven't, and by the way, you guys, if you haven't frozen your credit, you need to freeze your credit today. You have to. It's free. You need to do it. So that's my little fatherly coaching. I'll tell you why off camera. But if I can talk to my consumers and tell them I'm protecting you, I have a vested interest in you and your future, and convey that in under 3 minutes, guess who's first in line for their trust?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that reality of building trust, it can be built in a lot of ways, and it can, right, we all can sniff out disingenuousness. We can all sniff out someone who just doesn't have our best interest in mind. They didn't ask any questions. They don't actually know us, right? All of those things. And so I think
before you go on, everybody who has not frozen your credit, you need to freeze your credit today. Over 80% of the United States has had their credit or Social Security hacked in the last 2 years. Mine's been sold in the black market, and I'm okay because my credit's been frozen. You need to do that. So no matter what, if you're listening to this, write this down as a sidebar. We'll get back to your topic, but you have to do that. That's my value add to this podcast, okay?
Do it. I love it. You heard him. Do it. So how do you measure success of a marketing effort? I know you're a numbers guy. I know you like data and whatnot. Where's the line between having hard numbers on success of a marketing effort and intuition or a long-term play? How do you navigate that?
To make it as simple as possible, if it pays for itself, it's not a losing proposition. But there are things that you can't measure, and I don't like those things. And what that is I'm making this up. I work with RivalMind, and I have no deals, but they say that it's increased my brand awareness. I think anybody who is in sales, you need to track every single lead. For me, I track every single lead. I ask where they came from, and every single application, I do the same. So I guess there's this tangible. I like the tangible because I can measure that. And so if I hire a RivalMind and I pay them $1 billion, but I make $1 billion in an offset, I know it pays for itself. If I hire them and I pay them X amount of dollars and I make more than that, then it's definitely a winning proposition. The hard thing is the intangible, where they say, well, it's a created brand awareness. I think the only way to close that gap is to ask every single lead that you have as far as where you got it and how'd you get my name? Why are you calling me? And tracking it that way.
Yeah. In regards to timeline management and other areas of marketing efforts, what are ways you found to help set accurate expectations of, okay, this marketing effort, it should have payoff in this amount of time, or this marketing effort should have payoff in this amount of time, right? As you were alluding to, right? Trust isn't built quickly, but it can be lost quickly. But so how do you navigate that piece of even in the absence or in the presence of data, trying to create a timeline on, the return on investment?
So I'm going to rabbit trail here a little bit. I will tell you, like, if I buy a lead service, I should know within 30 days. So I'm paying for all these leads, and let's make it, I'm paying $200 a lead, and they say you have to buy a minimum of 15 leads a month. So that's what, $3,000 a month. I should have, 2 that have gone to application within those 30 days. Really easy peasy. With something like a RivalMind, Matt was very, very upfront that he's like, you're not going to have any kind of, if you're lucky, you'll see some sort of interface at the end of a 6-month period, but probably not for a year. So fortunately for him, the expectations that he set were very transparent. And you talk about know me, like me, trust me, that trust element's up front, because he's disclosing, what he's addressing any of the fears or concerns that I might have. Now, I will tell you, when I market and go approach a realtor, can I be really cocky and arrogant here? is I think that the world that I'm great at, there's no one better. So in this narrow range, I'm the best. Everything out, the rest of the world, I suck at. But in this narrow range, I have my gifts. So when I attack a realtor partner, or a builder, I know it's a matter of time till they see that value. So when they tell me to go pound sand, my marketing efforts, like, no, they just don't know me. And I say that, hopefully it doesn't come across arrogantly, but I have such confidence in big difference, a canyon between confidence and arrogance. I have such confidence in how I am committed to raising other people up, helping them look good, helping them build their business, and treating their clients in a world-class experience, that's really not a tangible timeline. How long will it take them to break and realize I'm their homie? And I have my number one referral partner has been with me for about 23, 24 years. And I will tell you, I met her my first year, and I stopped by her office every week for about a year and a quarter. And every week, she pat me on the head, pat me on my butt, and say, "Move along, little boy." And by accident, we ended up having a deal together. And there became a very critical part where the deal was going to make it or break it. And she told me, "Larry, we get through this deal, we will be partners for life. If we don't, I'd be very disappointed in you." And talk about a little bit of pressure. So I went back and I got the deal done with the help of others. And we've been together ever since. But I tell this to all the people that I work with. In a 3-month mark, don't you think I should have probably thrown the towel in? 6-month mark for sure. Why am I back a year later still knocking on that door, thinking that there might be opportunity? And here it is, a year and a quarter, we finally have our first deal together. You have to believe in the things that get you out of bed, that you're good at them and you're learning and you want to become better. If you do that, that's easy. It's just a staying power. You have to do that. So 3 different ways to measure.
Yeah. That reality of knowing what your marketing goal is and how long it's going to take, and how long are you willing to commit to stay in the game, if you will, right? If you had given up at 3 months with that relationship, you wouldn't be here today, right? In the same way. So like there's always this piece of everything is built on trust, like you've said.
And I think when you target people, you're going to target A's, B's, and C's. She was an A. She's a whale. And whales, actually, if you think about it, whales should put up a shield of defense saying, "I'm not letting anybody in. You have to prove yourself." And so, she had somebody else she was working with, and she had to see that I was the real deal. And trust me, I've been targeting people for a year and a half, 2 years that still tell me to go pound sand. I'm okay with that. I just believe that God will put the right people in front of me and the right relationships will be. But in the meantime, you got to feed yourself with C's and B's as you target those A's. But you can't let go. Not if it's in your heart.
It's really good. What's one topic that we haven't covered so far that you would like to educate some consumers on?
I'm going to say, one thing just because I'm passionate about this, and this probably has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but I do have my own podcast, and I don't really care about that per se. I got a book called No Rewind. I believe that God's called everyone to greatness. And what I like about the book is that, it's real people that have made a decision to quit whining, and if I could say the word bitching, about their lot in life, and decide to overcome that and go down to the path that God called them to do. It's pretty awesome. And so I think whether that's not marketing, but maybe it is marketing, because I think that in a certain way, if you discover the passion that God wrote on your heart, then you're going to be able to go out and market it. And quite frankly, you become a marketing billboard for God, maybe in a weird kind of way, if you know what I mean. But I see so many people suffering with depression, complacency, failure, listening to the wrong voice. And frankly, I had my I painted myself in a corner and got what was one of those guys. And so now that I'm out and help other people, that's my passion, is changing hearts. And so that's marketing 101, I think. Be a light unto the world without being a preachy little mofo. Be real.
What more should be said?
Yeah.
That's so good. There's, we're people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even when we're talking about all these like marketing efforts, in a marketing effort, we're trying to, like you said, we're trying to interact with an A or a B or a C, right? The reason why we can target so well is because we know the kinds of people that we're trying to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
We know what questions they have, what fears they have, what they've tried, maybe what they have, what they tried that was successful or tried that failed, all of those pieces. I think that's really unique to what you bring to the table. And I think that absolutely relates to marketing is knowing your audience.
Yeah. And I do think that, I guess maybe the way we weave this all together is the way that you're going to be the world's greatest marketer is if you are authentic. And if you're truly authentic and you care about and pour yourself into people without losing yourself, that's pretty sexy. I want to hang with people like that, being the best version of yourself. And I think that's probably why people like working with me. And I'm saying this arrogantly to the audience listening. Outside of this world, I am the worst. I have everyone sweeping up after me, but in this little niche of where I'm good at. And everyone should own that area that they're great at.
Yeah. We all can't be good at everything.
No.
But the things that we are good at,
own it.
let's be exceptional.
Yeah. You bet.
Larry, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited for future conversations down the road. So thank you all for listening. Again, I'm your host, Josiah Flex. Join us next week on Know Thy User for another marketing conversation.